Data migration is the idea that data already exists somewhere and that it will be transported into the cloud. Once the base of existing data has been migrated, updates and new data will be added to the cloud version and the original is no longer needed. Data ingestion is the idea that data will continue to originate outside of the cloud and will be periodically loaded into the cloud. This lesson covers the most common methods for getting data into the cloud. For a more detailed treatment of data strategy, please refer to our data engineering courses.
So let's talk about data migration. We need to bring data into our system, and we potentially need to migrate it from different locations. So there's a few ways that we do this. One is directly from the console for GCS. You can just drag and drop files. There's the gsutil for the Google Storage Utility command. This also has the built-in Amazon S3 SDKs, so it allows us to transfer data from Amazon buckets and ourselves. But it also gives us the capability to do identity access management, signed URLs, access control lists. There's a whole bunch of capabilities just from this command line. And then, of course, our JSON API. So here you can make the API calls yourself. You can compress this data, and you can also do partial uploads, which is really good, especially because most uploads to GCS buckets are going to be entire updates. And so in this case here, if you control the API, you might be able to have a little bit more efficiency built in. Now we also have a commercial service. Well, not a commercial, but it's a service that is designed for very large transfers, and it's called the Cloud Transfer Service. It's basically a web-based interface that's using a lot of the APIs in the backend to transfer data between, say, Amazon and us, and it does so very efficiently. Now, it usually recommends typically over a terabyte worth of data because it can do a lot of management, like deleting the source data, making sure one is synchronized, overriding any changes, but it optimizes the number of streams as well. So it looks at that source material and says, how many of there are there? I will create an optimized number of streams to ensure we can get this moved over as fast as possible. Now, just as a little fun side note, if you've ever seen the movie Spaceballs, in there they actually have something called Mega Maid, which is where the spaceship turns into a maid and sucks all the air out of Doridia. Well, we actually used to call this service Mega Maid because it would suck all the data from Amazon. But of course, the marketing folks got a hold of it and said, we need to call it something more sophisticated like the Google Cloud Transfer Service. But if you want to be cool and hip and understand where the real names are, just say, hey, I want to use Mega Maid to transfer that data. Now, of course, the size always does matter, and if you need to be transferring hundreds of terabytes of data, perhaps you don't want to do that over the network. Even though Ingest is free, it may not be time efficient. So we now have the transfer appliance, very similar to Amazon's Snowball capability. It's an appliance that ships on site. You can either rack it or do it as a off-the-shelf appliance, up to a petabyte worth of storage, and this way you can copy all the data on your local network and then ship it to Google for data ingest. Here's a fun little table to kind of give you an idea, right? When you really start to scale up in the amount of data you need to move over to us, you also have to scale up in the amount of bandwidth that you might have capable. Now, even at 10 gigs fully saturated, 30 hours is pretty considerable, but I wouldn't say considerable, the fact that you probably cannot utilize that full amount of bandwidth yourself. And this is where you'll start to see some serious delays in larger data transfers. So just kind of use this. And, we do recommend using the Google Transfer Appliance, probably between, 10 and 100 terabytes, just to make your life a little easier. So other ways that we ingest data into your service. Now, first, obviously, it can be done through the network, which is going to be, it's globally available. It's highly available. There's a bandwidth up to 100 gigs in many of our peering locations in low latency. You can post directly to Google Cloud Storage using HTTP, RESTful APIs. You can put front-end applications through App Engine. So this way we can build an authentication, integrate that way. Even cloud endpoints. So we can expose just a simple API that can ingest data into your application through cloud, even through Cloud Functions, or set up a Compute Engine instance and store it on local persistent disk. There's a number of different ways to bring data in. Some of them have various pros and cons, which we can cover.